Have you ever heard the parable of the rich industrialist and the nun? It's a parable you won't find in the Bible, but it's been around for a while and it has something to teach us today. As the story goes, a man grew very rich through his work in industry. At some point, though, being a Christian, he began to question his wealth, wondering if there was something more important in life than just being rich. And so he did what anyone at the time would do and went to a holy nun for advice. He told the nun that he wanted to be a better disciple of Jesus and that he would do anything she told him to do, even if it meant selling all of his business and becoming poor. The nun thought about it for a while, took it to prayer, and finally gave the man her answer. Use your wealth to build another factory so that more people will have good jobs. Now, obviously, you can see how this story could be misinterpreted for selfish ends, how stories just like this have been used to justify horribly unchristian behavior in the past. In defense of their billions in assets and luxurious lifestyles, some capitalists will say, "But look, I'm producing jobs," all the while paying minimum wage in poor working conditions. This is not what draws me to the story and overlooks the key point that the nun makes. Produce good jobs. Jobs that pay well, of course, but not just that. Jobs that offer safe working conditions and appropriate hours to enjoy leisure as well. Jobs that bring fulfillment to the worker and allow them to participate in the creative acts of God. Jobs that give meaning and purpose to one's life. This is not easily produced or maintained, which is sort of the inherent point of the parable. Jobs like these cannot be produced if the owner's salary is too high, demands are too heavy, or most importantly, if the central purpose of business is nothing more than to make money. When profit is the utmost goal, when all the owner cares about is increasing shareholder value, the nature of work becomes flipped. Humans are treated as nothing more than cogs in a system to make others money. This is not a good job. And so, far from being a cop-out or a means of justifying selfish ends, this parable, properly understood, is actually quite radical. The nun may not have asked the man to sacrifice all of his wealth or sell his business, but her demand requires no less of a commitment. She's asking him to see his role in owning a company as a duty of justice and as a vocation. She's calling this man not to run from the business world in order to be a Christian, but to be a Christian in the business world, leading through self-sacrifice, putting humans before profits, and seeking the common good. As Catholics, when we talk about vocations, we often do so in the context of becoming a priest, a friar, or a nun, professional and full-time religious. This is important and necessary, and we need more people to dedicate themselves to these sorts of lifestyles. But there is more to a vocation than simply taking religious vows. A vocation, in its most essential form, is simply a calling from God to live as a disciple of Jesus Christ, dedicating one's life wholly and completely to the gospel. It's about living with the mindset that our lives are not our own, that we are working to achieve a higher purpose, one that is inspired by and ultimately serves God. Priests, friars, and nuns are obviously examples of this that get a lot of attention, but surely being a husband or a wife is a vocation as well, is it not? Raising children in the faith, building up the domestic church, this is not just a job, it's not just for ourselves, it is a life dedicated to carrying out God's will. And if this is the case, what about teachers and catechists, doctors and counselors, police officers and firefighters? Surely there are some who approach these professions as nothing more than a paycheck, but others can and probably should dedicate their lives to these jobs as vocations, as a means of living out their faith wholly and completely. And if this is the case, why haven't I ever heard someone speak of a life in business as a vocation? Why does the church not speak of accountants, investors, marketers, entrepreneurs, and industrialists as vocations, as means of using their great skill and wealth for the sake of the kingdom? What I'm talking about are not business people who happen to be Catholic, who go to Mass on their lunch break or spend their weekends at church but otherwise look just like every other business person. I'm talking about Catholics who let their faith influence everything they do in business, who see their business as a means of actualizing their faith. I'm talking about accountants, investors, marketers, entrepreneurs, or industrialists who build up the life of the church not simply by making donations to the church, but by making their business and work reflect the life of the church. Where are all the Catholic CEOs who take pay cuts to save their employees' jobs? Or better yet, don't take incredibly high salaries in the first place? Where are all the Catholic investors who refuse to give money to companies with human rights violations and instead help people direct their money towards just entities? Where are all the Catholic marketers who tell the truth about their products, who don't just sell people things they don't need, and who focus on positive messages over negativity? Where are all the Catholic entrepreneurs who focus their attention on what the human family needs rather than just what makes the most money, contributing to the common good of all? I know that they are out there because I know some of them personally. I know that there are good Catholic people in the business world who take seriously the church's social teaching, who grapple with difficult ethical decisions and do their best to live their faith in the workplace. I know they're out there. I'm just wondering why there aren't more of them. I guess I'm just hoping that some of you will see this and realize that even though you're not a priest, a friar, or a nun, doesn't mean that you're off the hook when it comes to a vocation. Maybe God is calling you. Maybe he does have a plan for your life, and it's to direct all of your efforts to making the economy more just, to ensuring that the weakest and most vulnerable are not forgotten, to affording all working people the rights and benefits they need to support their families, to strive tirelessly for the common good so that our world will better reflect the kingdom of God. Please, 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 don't just get a job. Don't just work for a paycheck. Don't allow yourself to be just another cog in the system that chews people up and spits them out. Learn about Catholic social teaching. Take seriously what our faith demands of those in the business world, and use your wealth and talent for the sake of God's kingdom. In other words, live out your vocation.